Welcome to Syncast powered by Commercient. I'm Heath McKnight. Joining me today is somebody I've known for a couple of years now, Michael Skelton. How are you, Kelly?
I'm doing great. How are you, Heath?
I'm doing great, thanks. So tell me a little bit about yourself and where you're working and everything.
Sure. Yeah, so I currently work for Thrasio. It's sort of a next generation consumer packaged goods company. We sell a lot of different products on Amazon. And I've sort of followed a marketing theme my whole career, but several different positions. Went to school for marketing, came up through sort of social advertising and website management. Then I went on to do more like marketing technology and some sales technology, implementation and maintenance and management. And now I find myself back in content strategy and website management role.
You have a pretty incredible background, not just in marketing, and you have an MBA too, which is awesome. But you have this awesome background in technology, specifically Salesforce, and a lot of our viewers of this podcast or listeners are interested in CRM such as Salesforce, and Salesforce is really the big one. It's the biggest CRM. Somebody once told me that if you added up all their competitors, they don't even come close to Salesforce. I was wondering if we could talk a little bit about, your experience with Salesforce and your thoughts on how it helps a company, because I think a lot of businesses will say, okay, we need a CRM, we need Salesforce, but sometimes they can get stuck. Other times they can succeed. So maybe we could also talk about your thoughts on the success, how a company can succeed with Salesforce.
Sure. Yeah. Well, two things attracted me. Well, really three things attracted me to Salesforce in general. I think Salesforce is great for a couple different reasons. One is that their CRM product, which is obviously like their core product, is what they initially came out with, is very customizable in a fairly intuitive way, providing that you have somebody who's familiar with it. The level of customizability that you have, even for a very small company, is invaluable. Like it's so helpful to have. Like even every small business, like it's not a cookie cutter design. You can't design a singular CRM with certain features that is going to be a one size fits all. So I think the customizability at every level of Salesforce is incredible. I think also through sort of developing their own products and their acquisitions, the fact that you as a customer or in a business can grow with Salesforce, and the fact that they have marketing capabilities, they have customer service capabilities, they have integration capabilities, I can go on and on in terms of the different clouds they offer. That is super helpful because obviously they come with an understanding of how each other operate. So setting up sort of sales, customer service, marketing, all the different departments of your company with the relatively same technology that speaks well to each other, that's super helpful too, because generally in the past, you have a marketing software, you have a sales software, you have a customer service software, you have an accounting software. I could go on and on with that too.
Yeah.
And you have to hope that they either have out of the box integrations as a smaller mid-sized business, or you hope that you can afford a development team to set up sort of a one-time integration, and then hope that it's not a large sum of money to maintain. So those are two great things. I also think that their learning platform, which was initially how I got involved, is huge because it's set up so well that it kind of ensures that there are going to be talented professionals that know how to operate Salesforce technology, providing that you can go out and you want to hire them in-house or even hire consultants. Like you don't have to worry that it's such a niche skill that people are going to be unable to sort of upskill it if you purchase it and want to train within or go hire somebody outside in the workforce.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to talk a little bit more about the Trailhead. I think one of the coolest things I've heard you say in the past is, there's a lot of things that just can weigh down a company in terms of manual processes when it comes to software. And when you have a lot of your software under one license with Salesforce, but then you have other things happening and you're moving data, it becomes a waste of money. It becomes a waste of your team's time and everything. And I think you said, and it stuck with me, automate everything, or at least automate as much as possible. And I think one of the things that you in the past have told me that you like, especially for businesses, is how Commercient can automate the accounting and operations data found in everything found in ERP with Salesforce. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that, and also just automating in general and how that frees up the teams to spend better time doing, their job, like selling, marketing, et cetera.
Yeah. So Salesforce has like great sort of in ecosystem, like automation capabilities, like Flow, formerly like Process Builder, workflow rules, etc. That aren't a complex coding like setup. It's literally as simple as sort of saying the words out loud. A lot of times, like when you sit down in a business, it's like, well, I just wish that, when we converted this lead, that it sent them an email telling them, what their case number was, or what their opportunity, quote number was, or something like that. It's literally that simple in Salesforce. It's a couple clicks, in a process or in a flow that says, when, lead is converted, send this email alert to the contact, right? So it's like, it's super intuitive. It's not anything where you have to go, okay, we want to send this email after this thing happens. We need to go, call up a developer to see if they can make this happen, or we just need to do it manually every time. That's a horrible predicament to be in. So in-house, Salesforce has incredible automation capabilities that I've definitely taken advantage of over the years. And then externally, like there's an amazing ecosystem of partners and consultants like yourself that I've had the privilege of working with, that integrate Salesforce in its sort of API friendly nature out to other systems that you might be using. And while I just said that Salesforce has so many capabilities, customer service, marketing, at Fiber Optic Center, we were using sales and marketing, which was great. Sales and marketing talk to each other. That's fantastic. What, Salesforce still doesn't have all software in the world, as much as I'm sure they'd like to eventually. Something like an ERP for accounting, they don't have an ERP solution. So you're going to be using some other ERP. In our case, it was Sage. And so, there's a beautiful ecosystem of like top tier consultants and integrators like Commercient that will go out and sync your data back and forth between those systems. So when you go with Salesforce and other enterprise technology such as Sage, like as long as you're not using a niche software, there is that ecosystem that will support your integration, and it's not going to cost, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. It's very affordable for the benefit that you get. So inside and outside of Salesforce, there's a lot of automation integration capabilities that when I worked at SSG Pools, my first job, it was a construction company, small construction company. They used a pool industry specific CRM. They used enterprise level marketing automation that didn't talk to each other. So it was constantly hitting my head against a wall, getting on the phone and contacting people, sending emails. Hey, is this accurate? Hey, how does this person feel about their pool? What's going on in this person's construction process, because we just didn't have sort of the integration or the automation capabilities, and it was extremely frustrating. So fortunately, I've been able to see both sides, and the Salesforce ecosystem is the best side that I've seen.
Yeah, I I think one of the worst things I ever heard was from both a sales manager and an accounting manager perspective, running an ERP and running Salesforce. So if somebody's out in the field, they're like, oh, I really need to know, where we're at with this, this, and this. The head of sales, or at least inside sales, has to stop what they're doing, get on the phone. And it could be something as simple as, hey, I heard this client just, has a new address for the home office and then opened up 3 new warehouses. And then the poor, accounting team is stopping what they're doing to tell them that, or they're calling the warehouse. You had mentioned once, like, okay, so where are we at with products, before I blast the world with a Pardot marketing, campaign, and, what are you doing? And they can access all of that, and they're not wasting half their day, like I said, manually moving data, or at least asking somebody, hey, could you get me a report on what this person bought? What's the quarterly sales report? With Sync, they can dive in at any time and see where they're at with sales. They can see where they're at with inventory and everything. But what you described to me, it seems like one of the most inefficient, ways of your time is, like, I don't know how much time you're spending trying to see and making calls and emails, but it just seems like you had a much better use of your time.
Yeah, you want accounting and sales and customer service and marketing. You want these managers, directors, whatever, level, the size of the company, you want them to talk to each other, but they don't need to talk about these small, insignificant manual things. When you automate like a lot of that and integrate data, like it's not, people stop talking to each other, which I think is like a very like sort of shallow view of like, oh, well, then we won't talk to each other. And well, is that what you want? No, but the conversations change, and the conversations change to be a lot more strategic and a lot more, how do we get this integration and automation to be even better? And those conversations, the outcome is a multiple, sometimes 2, sometimes 5, sometimes 10, sometimes 100, times better than having a one-off conversation about, oh, did this person change their phone number, right? Like that's so insignificant to the business. Whereas if you say, how can we better empower our customers with the data that we're getting from, our external shipment software that syncs to Sage, how do we get that into Salesforce and send them a nice email? That's a much bigger problem that you're talking about and strategizing about than something, super, super basic. So yeah, people don't stop talking. They just have better conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do want to talk about the Trailhead and the power of it, and how it maybe in a way it's a little, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I've gone in and checked out, and it's really cool. I like how they set it up. I don't feel like I'm just almost like reading a book online and you're just like, okay, this is too much. It feels interactive. It feels like almost like a gamification of learning and everything. And I was wondering if you could talk about that, about just your journey through it, and you're pretty prolific trailblazer, but I was wondering, and they also, you don't feel like you have to just be this, person with this advanced engineering degree or no computers since the day you were born. It's almost like anybody could get in there and really go through and start to have a great understanding, and then do like a career pivot, or something along those lines.
Totally. Yeah. Salesforce Trailhead has done something that I think really, like any education software platform should adopt, which is the aspect of like gamification that you touched on. They make learning fun, and they do that like in a bunch of different ways. They have like awesome like artwork and graphics and whatnot. Everything is very like sort of easily like spelled out and able to digest. And then, also they have sort of, like a ranking type system where they, they count how many lessons you've gone through and how many, points you've accrued and certifications. But they do it in a really fun way, very shareable way. And it kind of gives a baseline for customers when they want to hire a developer, admin, consultant, to be able to go to that source of truth and say like, oh, this is okay, this is a person that's very legitimate, has accrued a ton of learning. And in a way that, like, I came from a bit of a WordPress background. WordPress is an incredible software that you can use to build websites, but they don't have any form of real like certification or training or anything. It's very much like you have to either go to a community group, or you have to kind of trial and error your own website. And when somebody reaches out and says, oh, I'm a WordPress developer, and somebody else reaches out and says, I'm a WordPress developer, you're almost going off what they say. You have no credential-based background. So that's why Trailhead is great. I also think from a learning perspective, they break their lessons down into like very digestible segments where you can, some trails you can go through in 15 minutes, others you go through, I should say like Trailhead badges, you can go through in 15 minutes. Others, might take you 45 minutes, but you've almost developed like a mini amount of mastery on a specific subject. And then you can kind of, depending on the path that you want to go through with Salesforce, because there's so many different opportunities with different types of software that they own, and low code versus coding, and consultant versus in-house, and things like that, you can piece together these different modules into what you want to know and be hired for. Which is really great. And I've really enjoyed the platform. My introduction to it was from, I always give him a shout out, Professor Tony Gao at University of Massachusetts, Lowell. I do have my MBA, and during my MBA, I was taking his course, which was a sales and marketing course. I think it was called Integrated Sales and Marketing. And it was all about sort of the new age of sales and marketing, and how it's no longer, very Mad Men-y sales and marketing, billboards, and, people trying to convince people and take people out for steak dinners and whiskey and all that. It was very much about how technology was becoming vital for like any company that wanted to succeed in this new age and interact with customers in a better way. And how, what Tony focused on was more about how smaller companies in certain industries had leapfrogged enormous companies that had way more headcount, way more, budget, and way more capabilities, more brand name, everything, right? Just by offering a better experience through their sales and marketing. And they did that through software and technology. And so he actually assigned, I think it was 20 badges focused on marketing and sales. And then he assigned a bonus assignment if you wanted to get, I think, like 2 points on your final grade or something, which, could be the difference between an A or a B. So I always took a B. And it was another 20 badges about how sales and marketing can integrate. And so after that, you're done with, 40 badges. Like you're well on your way on the platform. You've been able to assess whether you're interested in it or not. I happen to be interested in it. And one of the last sort of classes that he taught in that course was about the job market for all different technology and integrated marketing and sales roles. One of them was a Salesforce admin. And they said that you can make, over 6 figures within the first 3 years, that it was, you didn't need a college degree, which was ironic because we were going for our MBA, but, that it was relatively easy if you put in the effort to skill up. And the demand for Salesforce admins and Salesforce, and, professionals in general, developers, consultants, etc., was only growing, and was projected to grow by like hundreds of percentages. This was back in 2018, 2019. Over the next couple of years, which we've seen played out masterfully. Yeah. So I got really interested. I was doing my MBA to try to focus in something related to marketing. I wasn't sure what that was. And I ended up securing a role at Fiber Optic Center that was quite literally, it was Salesforce admin with sort of a part-time lens into marketing as well. And it was a dream come true. It was probably the best step out of college that I possibly could have taken.
That's incredible. And I really do like the badges. I'm a runner and a triathlete, and my wife looks at my wall of medals when I go and do these races. I mean, I don't really win, but you get a finisher medal. To me, that shows my accomplishment of running. Or even though now I'm on Garmin, when I was using my Apple Watch to run, I'd get like, hey, you got this medal for your longest distance.
Yeah.
And that's that gamification where you feel like, wow, I just did something. But like you said, it adds the legitimacy of it. If I'm paying money, I don't want to like, oh, I know Salesforce, but there's a way to prove that. And also the certifications, which is very important, but seeing all of those badges show that you're serious about it.
Yeah, that gamification is huge. I really hope that more education platforms take that on, and that more, skill-based roles and other software companies develop things like Trailhead. I think there's a great example of, you mentioned running. There's a great example of a startup out of Austin called Cardio. And they're basically gamifying the whole running experience through an app. And
wow.
What you do is you go, and similar to badges and similar to medals, when you run and you encircle or encompass a block of land, you actually, quote unquote, own the block on their app. And so people will compete with each other to own different blocks or own the most amount of blocks. And what you get out of that is healthier people, people that are exercising more, which is always great. So you get more people, I would say, run more. I know I do, because of that app and the gamification. And I think that it's the same with Salesforce, where you get more qualified professionals because of that gamification aspect, that people are constantly, wanting to skill up, and they can do it in a fairly easy way,
Awesome. And how many badges have you earned over the last few years?
I would say too many, but honestly, it's probably not enough with the way that Salesforce innovates their products 3 times a year. So I have 1,060 badges right now.
Wow.
And then 5 certifications and 9 super badges. So
wow,
I've been active on Trailhead.
Yeah.
And I always at Fiber Optic Center, when I was skilling up there, like people, were like, oh my goodness, like you're a Salesforce wizard, and then I would go to these conferences that they would send me to, like Dreamforce and other similar conferences, Northeast Dreamin', Texas Dreamin'. And I would go, and there would be people that were leaps and bounds, not just smarter, but more qualified on the platform than me. And, I don't know if it's technically gamification, but you aspire to be like those people, because they help you so much. I have this amazing mentor, Michelle Hansen, who is she has 20 certifications, and she'll probably correct me and either say it's 19 or 21, but she has a ton of certifications. She's so knowledgeable, and she has really mentored me in the process of becoming I would say, skillful Salesforce admin. And so you see those people, and there's always someone above you, and there's always someone below you in terms of how much you know about Salesforce. And so the really great thing is, you have the opportunity to get mentored by those folks above you, and you have the opportunity to mentor and teach those folks, that are just getting into it, like I was, 3 or 4 years ago. So it's a beautiful ecosystem.
It is, and what a great community too. Now the problem, you have 5 certifications, and Michelle has 20, maybe 19, maybe 21, but that's amazing. I know that the Salesforce Administrator certification is really kind of like that first big step, if I'm not mistaken. And I was wondering, with your experience on the Trailhead and getting certified, do you have any tips for acing that Salesforce Administrator certification exam? Because I think that's like one of the biggest things. If you just do a generic Salesforce search on Google, you're going to see a lot of, ads, obviously, but it's all about that, the how to get certified and all that. Do you have any tips for that administrator exam?
Yeah, I think that like your success on these exams is directly correlated to like the overall effort that you put in. Like I definitely, not everything is like that. Like many things are, you don't have the access to the information that you need, or, that you have to have, 5, 10, 15 years of experience to either do well in something or even have the opportunity to take something. That's not the case with Salesforce. Like Trailhead is 100% free. So I always recommend that folks start there. As they inch closer and closer to their exam, Salesforce does have practice exams that you can take. They do cost money, but they're very, very affordable. I think I haven't taken one in a year or so, but $50 to $100, and then the overall test is I think 100 or 200, and depending on the exam, and then I think you can retake once. Like it's very attainable for someone that wants to invest into themselves. It's more the time that you need to commit. In addition to Trailhead, which I cannot sing the praises of more, and then the overall like practice exams that they put out, I found that Focus on Force was very helpful for numerous exams. And then there was one Udemy course for the Marketing Cloud certification that I have. I think it's Marketing Cloud Email Specialist. Like that helped me a lot, just because there wasn't as much coverage on Trailhead and Focus on Force for that one. But I would definitely say Trailhead and then Focus on Force, which is not affiliated with Salesforce, but it's specifically sort of oriented towards it. Those are the places that I would go. And I would remind everybody, especially if somebody's just starting to consider the test, it's 100% multiple choice. So you don't need to have 5 years of experience in an org to get started and get that certification under your belt. I would definitely not get your a Sales Cloud Administrator like badge or certification and then try to jump right into a senior or sort of solo admin role. Definitely, if you don't have experience in the org, I would start as a junior Salesforce administrator. But to get that cert, you do not need experience working at a company inside Salesforce. You can literally, and I did it myself, start from scratch, just online resources, just free online resources until you get to the point where you need to take the test. And yeah, I think it's one of the most like underrated sort of non-college degree necessary jobs that you could have.
Yeah, absolutely. Kelly, where can they learn more about you and Thrasio?
Well, Thrasio is out in the world themselves. They get tons of news coverage. Thrasio, their website is probably the easiest way to learn about some of the brands that they have and exactly how they operate. For me, I mean, I'm always available on LinkedIn and Twitter to chat with somebody if they're interested in starting a Salesforce journey. I definitely think they should go on to Trailhead, and we can link my trailblazer.me ID somewhere around the podcast description. And then yeah, like feel free to reach out if they have any questions. And I did write a guest blog for Salesforce that we can link as well. Which is basically like, I think it's 9 tips to get started as a Salesforce admin. So that's more like role oriented than it is sort of training for the cert, but I think they kind of go hand in hand. Like, why are you going to go try to get the cert if you don't really want to roll, right?
Yeah, right. You end up going and doing a completely different thing. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time today, Kelly. Always really enjoy speaking with you.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to SYNCcast powered by Commercient. Learn more about ERP and CRM integration with Commercient SYNC by logging on to commercient.com.